Welcome to Black Conscious Nation, The Awakening. We're here at the Cape Castle, and we're here to hear some news that may be informative, but may not be pleasurable, but knowledge is power. Brother Harry, take us in. Welcome, brother.
Thank you.
Take us where we're at here.
So currently we are inside the Cape Coast slave dungeons. Others might prefer to call it Cape Coast Slave Castle. We don't want to call it a castle because the atrocities that happened here, it doesn't befit a castle. This is where captured, enslaved African men and women were held, awaiting their shipment to the Americas and the Caribbeans in order for them to work in the plantations.
So you said when they're caught, they wait in here?
Yes, as it is clearly written on top, the male slave dungeon. So this is where captured, enslaved African men, this is where they were kept. Our grandfathers, our fathers, our brothers, and our uncles, this is where they were kept. The worst part of it is that in here, they were not allowed to move outside on that regular basis. So they had to defecate, urinate, vomit, do all sort of things in here. And as you see, the male dungeon itself, it is very dark in there. And so because they were kept in darkness for a very long time, whenever they got the opportunity to step outside, the sun rays affected their eye. Many of them became partially blind whenever they were exposed to the sun. But in the dungeon, they used to have wooden buckets or receptacles just for them to ease themselves. But you know what? Because they were not entering this wooden bucket on regular basis, it sometimes gets full. They were left with no option to ease themselves on the ground. And so they slept on a bare floor. Others were sleeping on top of the others, for where each individual stood, it was a complete apartment for them.
You know, I just want to know, because the word you use is ease. For on the States, I wouldn't know what that means, but what ease means, literally, they had to relieve themselves of their stool and urine, correct?
Yes, to defecate, in other words, to go to toilet in the dungeon.
And it will overflow and it's all over the floor, and we get to lay in that.
Exactly.
Do you notice how I said we get to lay in that? Because those are our ancestors who was in here. Horrific conditions, they were there. Though we have not experienced that, but we have experienced it in certain ways or fashions. So I want to say thank you for this dictation here. And we're going to go to the next situation?
Yes, we'll be seeing the condemned cell. But just to add up to what I already said, in the male dungeon, there is a tunnel, which is about 70 meters to the door of no return. And so when the slave ships are in for them to move, the men are not going to come out through this main entrance of the male dungeon. They would have to go through the tunnel to onboard the slave ships. I'm going to assure you of one thing. The conditions in here, it was so horrible, very terrifying in here. Many people died in the dungeon, and it has been estimated that 1/3 of the captives might not survive before the arrival of the slave ships.
Wow. That's some information that is good to retain. And this is called Black knowledge. And we as African Americans, continents of Africans, wherever Black African you are, we need to always get this information and teach it to our children. And the knowledge has to be taught out. But who's going to tell our story but us? Imagine that. Brother Harry, sure, take us through here.
This is a cell, as it is clearly written on top. But it will surprise you, it is not an ordinary cell. It is a condemned cell. So captured, enslaved African men that were kept in the dungeon. Now, it looks as if the punishment given to them generally in the dungeon, it wasn't enough. They still went ahead to create a condemned cell. Now, enslaved African men who fought for their freedom while in the castle, they were seen to be stubborn, aggressive, rebellious. They were all locked up in here. Nobody went through the side and then came back alive. In less than 72 hours, nobody's going to survive within this very dungeon. So many enslaved Africans who were brought down to these castles, or enslaved Africans brought to these castles, never committed any crime. And so they had every right to fight for their freedom. So in a modern day, if you are in your home, the police show up they want to arrest you, you definitely have to fight for your freedom. You want to know what exactly happened that they want to arrest you. That is more or less like the scenario that was happening here. So people wanted to fight for their freedom because they have no idea why they are here. They never knew the offenses they committed. So many enslaved Africans would want to fight for their freedom. And anybody who tries that end up here. Just as I said, in less than 72 hours, nobody's going to survive here. And after 72 hours, their dead bodies will be thrown into the ocean.
So talking points. The so-called rebellious people who are self-preservationists believe they have the right for life, they protect themselves and their family, were put in here because they didn't comply. And once put in here, I think I heard correctly, they wasn't expected to come out of there. So basically it's a tomb for them. It's a form of, I'm gonna show the rest of you slaves, if you want to do this is what happens to you. And I can guarantee you when they died within 72 hours, you said?
Exactly.
They bring them out and allow everybody to see it and throw them into the ocean.
Yeah, so generally they will be in the dungeon. Maybe 1, 2, 3 people fight for their freedom, try to fight back. They'll be taken out from the dungeon. They'll be brought in here. Now, those of them in the dungeon, they are waiting to see the people they came for to return back.
Wow.
So after waiting 2, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, they are not coming back. And it brings this kind of fear into them.
Wow.
Where did they take our brothers to? But with the Europeans, they knew once they come in here, they are not coming back alive. Because there is no air moving in here. No food, no water was given to them. They were still in chains and shackles. So out of suffocation, starvation, nobody survived in here.
So at this time, you cannot see it, but later on, we'll go through a tour and you can go through it and you can see it best we can because it is dark, dust, dungeon. You may get a feel of it, but just catch us. Because you decided to fight for life, because you decided to say, I will not be destroyed, you were put in a dungeon where the sentence was done before you even got here, because their soldiers knew within 72 hours, you would be dead. You will be dead. That's interesting.
Yes. Now let me tell you one funny thing. There are 3 doors leading to this side. This is the main door. This is the very first door. There are 2 extra doors in the middle. And so our brothers who committed no crime will be kept in there. The 2 doors in the middle will be locked up. Now, yes, so British soldiers within the castle who one way or the other also misbehaved. Now, in trying to punish these British soldiers, they will be kept right in front over here. This door will be locked up. And then they decided to open up this space for them to get light and ventilation. While our brothers and sisters, or our brothers who committed no crime, were kept in there for them to lose their lives.
Form of torture, genocide. Wow. So before we go to the next one, anything else that Black diaspora may want to know about this death cell?
I mean, the idea was to kill them. Because yes, they could have shot them if they felt they were being stubborn or probably being flesh in their tongue. They could have shot them right away. But the idea was to let them make them suffer before they die. Hence the cell.
And not only did they do it that way, because the method was also mentally to affect those who were still in the cell.
Exactly, just as I said earlier.
Yeah.
Because if you are there with your brother, he was taken out, you've waited for days, he's not coming back, then you start wondering, what has happened to my brother? And by so doing, it's going to instill some fear in them.
Wow. All right, let's go to the next one.
All right, shall we?
Okay, Harry, we're here at another venue.
Yes. I mean, we've already seen the first one up there, which is the condemned cell. But this, again, is also a punishment cell. But this was designed solely for our grandmothers, our mothers, our sisters, and our aunties. Europeans that left Europe to trade in West Africa, they never came to Africa with their wives. They came here alone. For that reason, they were abusing our sisters, our mothers sexually. Now, those of them who said no, they will never agree to them, or they will never allow themselves to be abused by these Europeans. They were beaten up severely and then later kept in here. And so there was a huge metal gate covering the side. Food, water was also given to them through the side. There is an open space in here. That is where they had to defecate and urinate. So those of the women who resisted rape from the officials, they were the ones kept in here from 7 to 10 days before later they will be released back into the dungeon. So the whole idea, it was to frustrate the women so that whenever they wanted to abuse them, they can easily have their way through. And so the idea is to break their spirit down. If you do not allow yourself, you'll be kept in here. Later, you'll be taken back to the dungeon. If the governor or whoever it is still wants to abuse her, she's going to go in for the same person again. And if she resists, she'll be brought back here. And there's going to be to and fro until the woman becomes fed up and then decide to allow herself.
So what I believe I just heard, when we have the women who does not comply to the wishes of the molesters, they are no longer have the privilege of freedom because they didn't comply. They was put in here for suffrage until they would broke their spirit to comply to their wishes.
Yes.
Hideous.
I mean, like I said, it's a punishment itself for the woman. But then at some time or some point in time, before they will be kept in here, because they've resisted, at some point in time, they do tie their legs with the cannonballs, and then they will be allowed to stay at a courtyard from morning to evening, whether it's raining or shining. They'll just have to stay out here before sometimes they'll be brought out here. And all these are treatment given to them just to instill fear in them, and then they will allow themselves to be abused.
Wait a minute. So right now, I think it's about 90-something degrees out here, and I'm sweating. And you tell me they will put out black women in cannonballs?
So you see the weather now?
Yeah.
Imagine the temperature, and they have to change someone just at a courtyard, just because she said she wasn't going to allow herself to be abused. She's going to stay in the sun till evening, whether it rains or it shines. Stay out there.
Young black girls, I want to tell you something. That's the stock you come from. A lot of our black women would rather die out there to give themselves to a rapist. You come from good stock, young black girls. Understand that. Your genes are powerful, effective, and they're in you. And you need to call up on those powers to say, I too defy anybody who wants to defame me or hurt me. You are powerful people, Black conscious. Harry? Next.
So it was pure business. It was pure business, solely business. Back in Europe, they had insurance companies back in Europe. And so if they buy people from the castle, if they die in the dungeon, they die crossing the Atlantic Ocean. What is going to happen is that once they get back to Europe, they get their claims from the insurance companies.
Wow.
And at some point in time, they could deliberately offload ship full of Africans into the ocean just to move to Europe and then get their claims out of it. There was purely business. If they die in here, it wasn't a loss. If they make it to the Americas, it still wasn't a loss to them. There was both sides.
Wow. It's kind of touching. I want to revisit something. We was talking about where the female slave, when she was resisting and they was trying to break her spirit. And you was talking about how they took her up on the high area over here and changed the ball. Give me more of a visual for everybody.
So the issue here is that they want to abuse the women sexually. The women, they were never going to allow themselves to be abused. And so how can they find their way through? Let us give them treatment that they will succumb to whatever they want to do. And so as part of the punishment, apart from being kept in the cell, at some point in time, they could tie their legs with chains together with a cannonball. And then they would have to leave them out in the courtyard from morning to evening, whether it's rain or it was shining, they will still be out here. At some point in time too, they could ask them to carry the cannonballs in their palm this way. and then they will be in the courtyard. And so these were punishments that will instill fear in them, and then they will eventually going to allow themselves to be abused.
So I got a question here. You just said cannonball, chains, and for further humiliation, they had to hold the ball up with the chain on their arms. And what would happen if they couldn't hold it and they came down?
There were always soldiers or guards observing them. If you drop the ball, you'll be beaten up or you're going to be flogged. Just as I'm saying, they want to do everything possible just to break their spirit so they could allow themselves to be abused. But I can assure you, our women, they were very powerful people, despite all these treatment, despite all these conditions. Many of them.
I'd like to take this quick second here. To all my grandmothers, to all our aunties, to all our mothers, old and young, to the teenagers, to the adolescents, you are beautiful. You come from powerful genetics. Our brother just shared how your ancestors were tortured. They were terrorized. I'll use the correct word, terrorized. But yet, we still stand strong as a people. We are a nation of people with intelligence, with stamina, and resolve. We're going to go to the next one.
Yeah. Never got the opportunity to return back to the motherland again. I'm using the word forcibly because nobody went through the side out of their own will, that they want to go through this door. They were forced through this door. Once they went through this door, they lost contact with Africa. They lost their names. They lost their identity while they went through this very door. The door itself, it wasn't big as we are seeing now. It was very short and then very narrow, designed in such a way that only one person could move at a time. So whenever you get the opportunity to visit the Elmina Castle, you will see the original door of no return. Very, very short, very narrow at the Elmina Castle. But you know what? One of the things we need to understand is that not everyone that went through this door survived or made a journey successfully. From wherever that these enslaved Africans were captured across West Africa, they would have to walk barefooted to the castles. On the way to the castles, some of them lost their lives because of inadequate food and water. Others fell into traps. Others were attacked by wild animals. Those of them who were found sick and weak, they were left on the way to the castle. So only few people made it here. The few that made it to the castle alive. Once again, the conditions in the dungeons, it wasn't the best. So many died in the dungeon. The few that came out from the dungeon went through the side. They went through the door. They saw the ships, they saw the Atlantic Ocean, but never had an idea as to where they were taking them to. Some of them voluntarily decided to jump overboard into the ocean so as to themselves from going to unknown destination. Now remember, they were chained together. And so if one person decides to jump overboard, what it means is that he's going to pull a whole lot of people into the ocean. Those of them who were found sick and weak, they were likewise thrown off board. The worst part of the journey, there was a middle passage where human beings were made to lie side by side, unable to move or sit up, hands and legs in chains and shackles, human beings defecating and vomiting. One could not even get their own hands to even clean their mouth. It was not unusual to wake up, see the person chained next to you dead, sometimes decomposed. Progressively in the life of a captive, it never got better for them. It only got worse as the day passes by.
So that was a lot to digest. So I was going to rehearse what I believe I heard first before they get here. It's a long travel.
Yes,
in
so
chains.
The journey from here to the Americas, to the Caribbeans, it took them 2 to 5 months before they could reach there. Depending on their destination, depending on how the wind is blowing and how fast the ship can move to the Caribbeans and Americas.
Wow. That's a lot of information, as I stated, and I hope we are taking notes here, and that you can go online too and just research it. You don't really need to fact check it. It's a fact and it's checked. But however, family, information is power, and we need to share this information with our children at appropriate ages. You will give it to them, of course. So where should we go next?
Yes, as we've seen the door of no return, there's another wonderful information about this door when we step out. So I prefer we step out and see the powerful information.
Harry, where are we now?
This is the door of return. Back in there, it was door of no return, but it has been renamed as the door of return. Our brothers and sisters who were taken through this door forcibly, they hoped, they knew, they felt that in their spirit that one day they could return back home. But it was unfortunate, they died with unfulfilled dreams. They never got back home. But today, their descendants quenched their thirst with the door of return. In 1998, Ghana celebrated Emancipation Day. During the Emancipation Day celebration, two bones of two enslaved Africans were brought from New York and in Jamaica. That is Samuel Carson from New York, Madam Krista from Jamaica. Their remains was brought back to Ghana. The two remains that was brought back to Ghana, it is representing millions of our brothers and sisters who left here 400 years ago and never got the opportunity to return back home. Their bones was brought back to Ghana. When you are traveling from Accra to Cape Coast, there is a village along the way called Abanze, where you can locate Fort Amsterdam, just up on the hill.
Okay.
From Accra to Abanze, they traveled by road. But from Abanze to this part of the castle, all the crew decided not to travel by road again. If they want to get to the castle, then they need to get to the castle through the Atlantic Ocean. Why through the ocean? It is because the ancestors were taken to the Americas through the Atlantic Ocean. If the descendants of the ancestors are returning back home, then there is a need for them to also use the ocean. They got here right in front of the door. A very short but very powerful ceremony was done just right in front of the door. And after the ceremony, the bones were ushered through the door of return. That ceremony, it was very symbolical. The meaning of that ceremony means the chains has been broken. And for that matter, our brothers and sisters in the diaspora should now return back home. Let us not forget the Black Americans, we are not white people. They are not from America. They are all from Africa. It is because of the injustice that occurred in here. That is how come today they found themselves in the Americas and the Caribbeans. The door of return, it is to bring back home our brothers and sisters who left here 400 years ago and never got the opportunity to return back home. We are asking them to return back home now, for there is no place like home. So later, the two remains was later buried at the slave market, at St. Man's slave market. That is where the two remains was later buried. And so the door of return pasted out here. We are only calling upon our brothers and sisters who are today living outside the continent of Africa to return back to the motherland again. So it is a call up to our brothers and sisters who are living in the Americas and the Caribbean, who have never made their mind to return back to the continent again. It is a reminder to them to return back to the motherland again. And so once again, I would want to say Akwaba to you for making it to the motherland again. Most welcome to the motherland.
And I think we heard it clearly, Black Conscious Nation. And what I am also learning is not just the Black Conscious, the African diaspora, it's the continental Africans. So many people who do not have the information need to get this information, who we are as a people. So I want you to take this time, like, share, and subscribe. Put some comments down there, and put some comments down there. Tell us what you're thinking about this. And when you come here, come look for Harry. Not just Harry, the other tour guides. They're very prolific what they know, what they teach, and they have passion because it's ancestral love. And ancestral history. So from Black Conscious Nation, we're going to go to the next area. But again, like, share, subscribe. That's very important. And when you share and subscribe, you send it to your other family members and friends. They will get this information. We must not keep it with ourselves. We must share this information. Peace and black love. To the next section. Harry, where are we?
So as you can see, it is a very big, long hall. This is the Palava Hall. This is where buying and selling of human beings took place. And so before anybody at all would be taken into the dungeon, the person would first of all have to be brought up here. Now in here, they had European doctors and nurses in here, as well as company representatives, slave companies representatives in here to negotiate with the middlemen. And so before anyone could be bought, they would have to determine whether he or she is physically strong. Now in trying to determine whether they were physically strong or not, what they normally do is to press their muscles, hold their jaw, look at their eye, look at their teeth, just to determine how physically strong they were. Now those of them who were physically strong, they were the ones bought and then taken into the dungeon. Those of them who were not fit enough to be bought, whoever brought them in here needs to take them back. But these middlemen, during these transactions, they were not willing to do so. And so they move a bit inland, they abandon them on the way, and then they continue with the journey. So even if you are not bought from this side, there is still the possibility that you might still not survive while you were left in the forest. You could be eaten up by an animal. So the whole of this area, it was an auction block for the British. This is where they basically determine who to buy and who not to buy.
So, Black Consciousness, I know you heard what was just said by Brother Harry. This is where they brought our ancestors, male and female, young or old, child and infant. I want you to look at this. Imagine a long stage here. On each end, you come up here, you walk down, and people walk up, do all kinds of things, make you turn around, bend over, check you, make sure you're right for the fit. It's violation. It's violation. Violation. And this is what they did to us hundreds of years. Why do we do this? To give you the truth. Give you the truth of what our ancestors did, so you understand you owe your homage to them and to the God of them. That we would say, because of them, we stand, and stand we shall. That's the stage set. Every one of our ancestors were put here like animals, searched, disregarded. And to make it so clear, some of the buyers were looking at the women in hopes they can have some mistress affairs with them. It wasn't all about just putting them out in the field. They were animals. That's Black Conscious Nation. Anything else, Harry?
Yeah. I mean, there's one thing I would want to add up to what we've learned so far. Many people say Africans sold their brothers and sisters out. Yes, I agree to the fact that some Africans sold some Africans out. But the point here is that back in those days, not everyone was considered as a brother or a sister. If you're not from the same family, if you're not from the same tribe, kingdom, lineage, you were never considered to be a brother. So people from the same tribe, or probably the same kingdom, saw themselves to be brothers and sisters, and they only sold people outside their tribe out because they felt they were not part of their tribe, and then they were never considered to be a brothers and sisters. But it is very important that we see ourselves as brothers and sisters. That is the only way we can move forward as Black people. Now we also need to know that one of the biggest tools the Europeans used against us, it was mistrust. They will make sure we Black people, we do not trust ourselves. So if I don't trust you, it is easily for me to give you out. And vice versa. If you also don't trust me, you can easily give me out. And that course I've done for. And even up to today, we as black people, we are not comfortable dealing with ourselves. We prefer to deal with probably a white person. And so it is very important, and at this very crucial stage, every African living in Africa, living outside the continent of Africa, it is very important for us to see ourselves as brothers and sisters. It is very, very, very important to see ourselves as brothers and sisters. Other than that, we'll keep fighting battles and we'll keep losing. Until we see ourselves as brothers and sisters, until we move together with a purpose, we can never win any of our battles. So it is very important for us to see ourselves as brothers and sisters. You can never defeat a group of people with common purpose, with common ideology, with common vision. You can never defeat them. This is how we Africans need to see it. This is how we Africans need to see ourselves. Let us come together. Let's see ourselves as brothers and sisters. Let us have one vision, one purpose, one goal. And by so doing, we can also make our continent as better as we have always dreamt of.
Wow. One-minded. I think Martin Luther King Jr. says like this: either we stand together as brothers or we perish together as fools. What shall we do, family? We have seen the system work against us over 400 and something years. When we don't stick together, we see what happens. We must start making it a point to see our brothers and sisters and give unconditional love. You see somebody in need, unconditionally help them with no strings attached. Let them know you love and care for them. Black love has to be an active ingredient, not just a verbal statement. So, Harry, any last thing you want to say to us?
All right, so to my brothers and sisters in the Americas, in the Caribbean, every part of the world you find yourself as an African. From America, from the Caribbean, from Asia, any part of the world. If you have an African descent, you need to visit the Cape Coast Slave Castle. Come and see the very place our ancestors went through. See where they were kept and know the atrocities that was committed against our brothers and sisters. So I entreat everyone watching us to make a time, or make it a point to visit the Cape Coast Slave Castle, to have a first-hand experience. It is very so that going forward as people, we can learn from our mistakes, build upon the past, so that we can have a better future going forward as Africans, as black people. So I entreat everyone to make it a point to visit the Cape Coast Slave Castle. Thank you so much for making time with us.
Yes. From Black Conscious Nation, I want to say thank you to our photographer, our cameraman, Abdul, my brother. He's fasting. He's teaching me a lot about the Muslim faith. Hey, that's what Black love is right there. Christian, Muslim, we working together, bringing it in. You know, that's what we need to do. As you said, one-mindedness.
Yes.
Pan-African. That's right. One love, one mind. Pan-African vision is you can be what you want to be, but when it comes to us to be one, we come together as one. All right? So again, like, share, subscribe, comment on us, do all that stuff. And I want to say Black power, Black power, Black power. Peace and Black love.